Hi there, I'm Srishti, and in this video, I'll be listing out some of the worst writing advice floating out there because I want to save all new writers from some heartbreak and headache. So let's go. Worst writing advice number 1. Have a unique or original story. I think this is bad writing advice because 1, it's impossible to write something 100% unique, that is if you're a human writing for other humans. And 2, because when new writers attempt to write a twisted and turned around tale that has never ever been written before, they end up writing something utterly unrealistic. That's why you must focus your energy not on writing something entirely new, but on presenting something familiar in a new light. So remember, you don't need an original story to hook your readers. All you need is some unique packaging to keep them invested in your perspective of the story. Worst writing advice number 2. Use fancy language. Many new writers believe that in order to sound professional and sophisticated, you need to use fancy language and those difficult to pronounce words. However, this can be one of the biggest turn-off for your readers. Readers want to be immersed in your story when they are reading it. But if your book makes them whip out the dictionary in every 2 minutes, then I'm sorry to say you're doing a terrible job as a writer. Therefore, always remember, the simplest of words have the greatest of impact. At this point of the video, if you are getting any value out of it, please like the video and consider subscribing to my channel because here we talk all about crafting compelling stories and creating rich, vivid experiences for your readers. Moving on, worst writing advice number 3. Describe everything. A lot of writers believe that to create an immersive experience for your readers, you need to convey each and every detail of your fictional world to your reader. And therefore, you get this urge of describing every little detail that's happening in that moment on the page. But this again is bad writing advice because the more description you have, the heavier your story is going to feel in your reader's mind. Because your readers are actually waiting for you to tell the story that they signed up for, and they don't care about the 7 petals growing in the corner of the garden of your protagonist's house if that's not a part of your story. In other words, a lot of description will bog your reader down and they will start skimming through the story instead of living through it. That's why when you're writing description for your scene, pause and think how much of this description really matters and which parts of this description is really going to enhance the quality of your story. So very carefully, you must pick and choose the details you need to reveal to the reader in this specific scene and leave out all the unnecessary fluff. As a professional editor myself, I know this can be very challenging for writers to do, and therefore if you want me to create a dedicated video for description itself, then comment the phrase, "I want that description video." Worst writing advice number 4. Have a super smart protagonist. A smart and clever protagonist is an attractive trope in fiction, and I'm not completely against it because even I used it in my debut novel, The Missing City. But what I'm warning you against is having a protagonist who is flawless to the extent of being perfect in every respect. Because if you have a super smart protagonist like that, number 1, they will be unrealistic. And also, they will end up making really good choices because they're flawless and they cannot be making mistakes. And so if they make those good choices, your book will lead to a perfect life of your protagonist and there will be no drama. And trust me, if you haven't got drama, you haven't got a story. That would be just boring old life that people are not interested to read about. Readers are interested in characters who make mistakes and learn things along the way. Worst writing advice number 5. Have a super stupid protagonist. Now, I know what you're thinking, that if I can't have a super smart protagonist, then maybe I can have a stupid protagonist. Well, that's bad writing advice too, and here is why. People generally give this advice of making your protagonist stupid because that would make your reader feel clever and special. And yes, that works for some extent, but only to some extent. Because if you have an overly stupid protagonist, then you will need to overly explain everything in your narration, which is going to turn boring and annoying for your reader. But yes, you can of course have a slightly stupid protagonist who is more like an underdog and goes through certain changes throughout the course of the story despite being slightly dim-witted. Basically, the trick is to have someone who is smart enough to understand the hints you're throwing at them in the narration, but is also flawed enough to make mistakes, and someone who keeps your reader invested. Worst writing advice number 6. Have a moral in your story. A lot of advice on the internet says that you need to be conveying a message, some kind of truth using your story. And that's a great concept. I totally agree with it and I'm totally on with it. If you want to write a story that conveys a beautiful message, that teaches people something new, that gets them through some kind of experience, that they learn something along their journey, that's awesome and amazing. However, due to this conception, new writers attempt to weave a truth in their stories that don't necessarily have a truth and don't need a truth in the first place. So I want to normalize stories that exist solely for the purpose of entertainment and to portray certain human situations without trying to convey which is the right and wrong in that specific situation. As a writer, it's completely fine for you to write stories that are not giving solutions to the problems existing in this world. It's completely fine if you're writing something which maybe just highlights something or shows something which is not even a problem. That's okay too, as long as it's entertaining and it's not harmful to someone. Worst writing advice number 7. Write every day. If you are one of those writers who believe that you absolutely need to write every single day of your life, congratulations, because you're on the road to ultimate burnout. Writing is a creative process and you must never shove it into the 9-to-5 work lifestyle. Even if you want to be a full-time writer, there are other things that you can do to support your writing career without actually writing. And yes, while I do think you need to build a consistent writing routine, I don't think you need a daily writing habit in order to excel. On the contrary, I think you must let your creative juices flow and expand into the universe and immerse yourself in the story that you're planning to write, even when you're essentially not typing the words. Worst writing advice number 8. If you are good in English and if you have good grammar skills, then you can skip the professional edit. Whoever gave you this advice, run away from them as far as possible, as soon as possible, because they want to kill you. Jokes aside, let me tell you that one of the biggest misconceptions new writers believe is that, oh, I think I have a good hold over English language and I have pretty good grammar, so I don't need a professional editor. I'm actually not sorry to pop your bubble and tell you that editing, professional editing, is not about language. It's actually about a lot of other storytelling aspects that you as a writer cannot understand about your own work. And that's why you need a professional editor no matter what. And hey, I'm an author and an editor both. I professionally edit books for other people, but still when I write my own book, for my own stories, I never use my self-editing techniques as a professional edit. I actually hire other editors to work on my story because when I'm working as a writer, I can never be the editor for the same piece. That's just not how it works. Worst writing advice number 9. Fit your story into an existing story structure. When I was a newbie writer myself and I was looking up for advice on YouTube, I came across so many videos that would tell me to actually fit my story under these structures. These famous ones like the 3-act story structure, the Save the Cat structure, the hero's journey structure. There are so many popular ones out there, and yes, they are so amazing. They're actually brilliant if you want to get started with story structures and try to fit your story into one of these. So they are really helpful, yes. However, the belief that my story needs to fit one of these structures didn't kind of sit well with me. And still, I kept trying to twist and turn my story to fit into one of these structures. I had the story in mind, I had a theme, I had few characters, but I was trying to fit that under one of these structures. Because I told myself that if my story wouldn't fit these structures, then my story wouldn't be liked or appreciated by the readers, because these structures are tried and tested. Which is true, they are tried and tested, but I was kind of afraid to step out of that zone, the conventions of these structures. It wasn't until I joined my master's program in creative writing that I realized that, you know what? I can actually twist and turn those structures to fit my story instead of the other way around. I had a big aha moment. Which leads me to my next worst writing advice, that is, believing in hard and fast writing rules. As I said, there is loads and loads of writing advice floating out there, and every creator you watch will probably give you some rules to work with as a beginner, because these rules are coming from their own experience, including myself. This video and all other videos on my channel are all my opinions, things that I have learned from my experience, and I'm trying to share those things with you to make your experience better than what it could be. But none of these rules are hard and fast rules, because if you look at so many different creators, they'll probably have different pieces of advice on something else. So let's say that I've talked about something in this video that you really liked, but then some other creator will tell you to do exactly opposite of that. So there will be contradictions, and that's why there is no hard and fast rules when it comes to writing. In my master's program, we believe that storytelling is a process of art. It's a creative process, and it's individualistic to every individual person. And that's why you must not restrict yourself to any specific set of rules by a specific author, teacher, professor, creator like me. You should not restrict yourself, because you know what? Everything is allowed. As a writer, you have complete autonomy over everything that you use in your storytelling process. It could be completely unique to you as well. But yes, the reason we writers must get together and learn from each other is because you will only be able to break those rules once you understand the basis of those rules. As they say, you can only break the law when you know the legal loopholes which you can use to get out of jail. That's why I would highly recommend listening to all of these rules and understanding why all of these people like me, creators like me, why these people are saying these things, why we are giving you certain pieces of advice, why we are giving you those rules. Because once you know the pitfalls of not following the rules, that's when you can break the rules while still avoiding those pitfalls. Alright, now you may wonder, hey Srishti, in your opinion, if all of this is worst writing advice, then what would be the best writing advice? Watch this video right here. Okay, this is me, Srishti Rathour, signing off for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate you being here in my community. I hope you have subscribed, and I will see you next in this video right here. Until then, bye!